Hello and welcome to the Leader Manager Coach podcast. Welcome along. It's Rob Ryles welcoming you to another edition. Now, in today's program, I'm very fortunate because it is extremely early in the morning where this gentleman is to interview somebody who I've been trying to get on the podcast for a little while, somebody with an amazing CV and somebody who's going to really help us look into his leadership skills, particularly. The person in question is Dr. Ravi Iyer. Now, he is a transdisciplinary polymath. He has 40 years experience spanning science, medicine, biochemistry, and pharmaceuticals. He's a physician, a scientist, an inventor, an author, and an entrepreneur. He serves as a CEO for a company called Active Power, which he himself founded. He was born in Mumbai, raised in Eastern India, and postdoctoral fellowship from the Harvard Medical School. And he has a life experience including a 9-year directorship of a hospice caring for dying patients. He's a director of a clinical research group of many physicians. He's a writer with numerous articles and essays, focuses on well-being and the metrics of health. And he's passionate about educating and stewardship of life, and somebody who has kind of achieved in many fields. Now, I don't know if that kind of gives a rounded view of you, Dr. Iyer, but I hope that's a kind of a little bit of a picture of your life up to this present point. But welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. You know, you always look better on paper than you are in principle. So that's just the way it is. But yes, my life did travel across many oceans, and I was swum and drunk from many rivers and many waters along the way. But thank you. It is early, but definitely a pleasure to be on the show with you today, this morning.
Well, thank you very much. And if I could, I would really like to know a little bit about your early life, just to kind of, it sometimes colors and gives a nice background to kind of talking about some of the things you've achieved, you know, in your professional life. But did you have a spiritual upbringing in your early life in India, Dr. Iyer?
Very spiritual. My family is deeply rooted in both scripture and Hindu spirituality. So the exposure was both intentional exposure as well as very organic exposure. You just grew up in an environment where prayer and practice of scriptural rituals and texts were part of everyday life, and that has continued in my life even to this day. I practice my own spirituality. My spirituality is more humanistic rather than theological or for a particular person, because being in the healthcare field, for me, the human condition is the concrete manifestation of the divine. So a person who is ailing, who's sick, who is in trouble due to the circumstances of their life, for me is the field in which I play. That is the field of my life work, and that's where I derive both my purpose as well as my strength and my direction.
Okay, so when did you know that you wanted to be in medicine or a physician or the world of health, doctor?
I was about 12 years old, 11 or 12 years old, when I decided I want to be a doctor. I used to write a diary. Even at that age, I had a little notebook. I used to make comments about my everyday life. at that time, 11-year-old, you just write about the trivial issues, but they are important to 11-year-old. And I wrote in that I'm going to be a doctor. Um, you know, 11-year-old, a lot of 11-year-olds write, I'm going to be a pilot, I'm going to be a fireman, I'm going to be a railroad engine driver, but for me, the idea that I'm going to be a doctor never faded. It just became stronger. Later in my middle school, when I was 13 or 14, at one point, my biology lab in the school, their supplier of frogs had fallen sick. So he could not supply the frogs for the dissection class. So with a sack, I went out into the woods and captured about 40, 50 frogs and brought them to class and gave them to the teacher so that we can all have dissection. And I still remember an experiment that a friend of mine did when the teacher was not there. We snuck into the biology class. We normally you anesthetize the frog and you put a needle through their hands and spread eagle them, but we didn't want to kill the frog, so we did not anesthetize it. We just swabbed it with a little alcohol, tied its hands so that it would not shake, and very gently opened its belly, took a look inside. No, took a look inside and then stitched it carefully back up and put it back into the aquarium. And it lived for it. The wound healed and it was.
Wow.
So
wow.
It was a live vivisection that we did. I mean, at that time, we were more interested in looking into the frog. We didn't really consider the ethics of what we were doing, but that's what we did.
Wow, it's a great story. There are so many aspects, Dr. Iyer, that I could talk to you about your life. And I'll just touch on that. When you look at your biography and your areas of interest and your achievements and what you've been involved in and what you're still involved in, there are many people who believe that you can only be good at maybe one or two things, and you have to focus on specifics. Now you look at what you've done, and you've kind of almost lived like 3 lifetimes with what it looks like you've achieved on paper. And what's your thoughts on being on focus and an ability to kind of be successful or create something in various fields in your life? How does that work for you?
Actually, I have only one purpose, one life. It just manifests itself in so many diverse ways.
Okay.
But because, see, I have many talents, but I have only one gift. And my life has been all about that one gift. And I use all my talents in the service of that one gift. So, like, for example, I am eloquent in language. I can write. My writing is powerful. That is a skill that I acquired when I was very young. I was always known in school for very, very powerful essays. So I had a skill that I learned early. My mother taught me that. So the skill of expression. So that's a talent. That is not my gift. I have a natural ability to connect with living creatures, whether it is animals or humans. I can connect and I can empathize with their condition. Now that's a talent. That is not my gift. I have a very incisive analytical mind, and that's a talent. That is not my gift. Now I use these talents in the service of my one gift, and that is to remove doubt and fear from the person in front of me. When I am in front of a patient, I am able to be a safe space for that patient. And to create that space, I use all my talents to create that space. So whether I created a medicine, all right, or whether I created, whether I was treating a dying person in a hospice, or whether I was serving as the principal leader as a chairman of a hospital, or whether I was serving as the founder of a top doctor clinic, or whether I was writing this book behind me, The Reaper's Dance. It was all the use of my talent to create a, a, a message, a conversation of freedom from fear. In The Reaper's Dance, it's about our experience during COVID, but the dominant problem in the COVID times was fear. I used to tell my staff that fear is the first contagion, not the virus. So it was fear which was tearing humanity apart. And the thing we did as a team in our clinic was we created a space free of fear. And the book is about how we did that. And I go into the details of how that fear was created, the lies that were told by leaders and academics. But all around is how groups of people all over the world banded together to confront this overpowering fear that was threatening human society. So in every case, that is my gift, my ability to create a space free of fear. And I use my talents, my writing skill, my analytical capacity, my ability to connect and to empathize in the service of this one gift.
You put it beautifully, and it's amazingly insightful, Doctor, that just as on its own, because I think to know what your own gift is and separate it from what may be talents and that support the gift is an amazing thing on its own. Is that something that you knew early on and came to you easily?
Yes.
Or is that, yes?
I was about 14 to 16, somewhere in that time frame, when I began to be able to distinguish talent and gift. See, the purpose of everyone's life, everyone is given this. Everyone is given a bunch of talents, and everyone is given one gift. Usually, very, very few people have more than one gift. I have not seen anyone get more than one gift. I believe that gift is something that is their most core essence. And that gift is different for different people. And the purpose, I believe, of life is to find your gift. And then use the rest of your time in the manifestation of that gift, in the employment of that gift, and you use all your talents. I discovered my gift when I was about 15 or 16, around that time, between 14 to 16, around that time, when I was a young teenager. I suddenly realized that I could make people become calm around me. People would get, when you're a teenager, everything is so dramatic, right?
Yeah.
Everything is like it's the end of the world, or it is you're either on Mount Everest or you're in the abyss. That's the only two states you are, So I found that I was able to help my friend circle kind of balance the highs and lows of their life and take a bigger view of what is to come. And I could do that just by being a space. I didn't have to say much. I would just be there and I would listen, and I would, at the right time, I would say something that would calm them down. And I soon realized that this was my gift, that I could do this. And then the rest of my life was acquiring knowledge and acquiring skills so that I could use it for my gift. So I went and did my high school, I did my college, I went to medical school, I went to a doctoral degree, did research, I went to academics. I did all of that, but those were not my gifts. I was picking up tools. I was They were all screwdrivers, pliers, and spanners that I was filling my toolbox with.
Yes, yes, beautiful.
And I have amassed a huge library of such tools, but they are just tools. And everyone looks at these tools and they marvel and say, "Oh, you did this, oh, you did that." But the real thing that is hidden from their view is the
Yes.
magic of the gift, because all these tools just remain shiny objects on the mantelpiece. All these are just shiny trophies on the mantelpiece. They do not contribute one little bit to the quality of life.
It's the essence that is where the
But
quality of life is.
when you take these tools off the mantelpiece and you use it to elevate the human condition, then suddenly you have something magical. And you have something meaningful and something that you can both enjoy and look back as a life of purpose.
Yeah, beautiful, beautifully put, and very, very insightful. I want to come back to your work, your book, The Reaper's Dance, before we finish. Certainly, I know that you've worked in a hospice with dying patients, Doctor, and I've worked in healthcare settings and worked with terminally ill people and young children who have been given diagnosis and things that people would call tragic. And there's a certain, and from my own perspective, there's a certain magic, that's probably the wrong word, but there's something beautiful about being with somebody at the end of their human physical life. I'd love you to talk about that aspect of your work and how it's impacted you and how it's maybe helped you evolve, if that's a relevant question in your thinking, in your work.
It is the greatest privilege of a human existence to be able to sit and walk with the last breaths of a life as they go towards the exit doors of life. It is also the same greatest privilege to welcome a life as it takes the first breath of existence. So these two, the beginning and the end points of life, are the greatest privileges that a human being can ever get.
Yeah.
Almost everyone at some point has the opportunity to participate in both these endpoints, the beginning and the endpoints. But most people participate in these two points of life somewhat unconsciously as spectators rather than participants. All right.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful mentor when I was doing residency called Stanley Talpers, and he used to run the resident clinic, and we would go and see our patients, and then we'd come back and report to him, and we would give the diagnosis, we would describe the patient, and then after we had done all that and given our treatment plan, he would say, what is the real problem? So his words were, the real problem, Dr. Iyer, he would say, is the unspoken, unasked question that the patient has about how he is going to live the balance of his life from this point onwards. You see, okay, the patient is really not concerned about the disease. He is concerned about how he is going to live with this new set of circumstances that has come to him. how is he going to conduct his life? Or how is he going to navigate the distance that is left for him? And he said, you as a physician have to impress upon him two things. You have to tell him that you understand this question. And second, you have to tell him that you will be by him and you will be by his side and you will help him navigate right up to the very end. If you can do this, you may have medicine, you may not have medicine, that is immaterial. You have done your job as a physician. And that, in essence, is how you approach the dead, the dying, and the death process. You see, dying, the person who's dying is usually the most calm and least affected person. Dying is always a family affair. Not only is the person who's dying, there's also all his relatives, all his loved ones are dying along with him. They are dying in their connection. So they're going through that grief process just as much. So the dying process is as much a family affair as it is an individual affair. And you have to be able to stand at the center of that and be able to gather everyone together and bring them together so that there is a collective elevation of that experience. It is not a formula that you can have because it changes from situation to situation. But the one thing that is common is you have to be able to be really vulnerable and open so that everyone has the freedom to be themselves. They have the freedom to cry, they have the freedom to laugh, they have the freedom to be who they are and to experience all the flavors, all the entire gamut and spectrum of their relationship, which they are going to evolve in this process of that person crossing over. So this issue is the central essence of the entire process. And there is fear. Sometimes the patient is afraid of what may come because it is an unknown process and they don't have. And you have to be able to be in a space where they feel embraced and safe, and that it's okay, I'm here, nothing's going to happen, don't worry, we go forward. And in this process, even when there is pain, for example, there are patients who in the dying process, they have a pathology that is giving them pain. And you give them medication to relieve the pain, but not all the pain can be removed. So there is a way where you can actually be with the patient and allow them to feel supported even when they are experiencing pain, and that, yes, I understand you're hurting and I'm here, I'm hurting with you. And through that connection, what happens is the pain becomes more of a reported experience rather than a lived experience. See, there is a narrative, there is an actual sensation of pain, and there is a conversation about pain. And usually the sensation of pain is not the dominant thing. It is the conversation of pain that is greater than the sensation.
Okay.
And if you can handle the conversation through the space of your being, then the experience of pain itself is a very easily manageable issue.
That's really interesting.
See, the conversation of pain is, oh, I am miserable, oh, I am no. The conversation of pain is all about disempowerment. It's all about, oh, I can't do anything. I am losing this. So, when we talk of leadership, this is leadership. When you leadership how can you be a leader if you cannot lead someone out of pain?
Yeah.
How can you be a leader if you cannot? Because confusion is pain. Pain manifests not just in physical manner. So there is a sense that some kinds of pain will manifest as a sensation, a hurt. There are other kinds of pain that manifests as confusion, as other kinds of pain that manifests as fear, other kinds of pain that manifests as anger, that may manifest as loss, as as uh, as uh, as humiliation, as feeling small and less than who you are. These as self-doubt. All this is pain because
Yes.
because they all make you smaller than who you are. And
Yeah.
a leader is someone who can eliminate pain in all its forms.
Well, it leads me on to what I may not need to ask really, and it's a phenomenal conversation because I've written down, I wanted to ask you about your work with people at the end of life. And then I wanted to ask you about leadership. And it's how on earth did I ever believe that you would transition in your own narrative, talking to me, answering the question about how you use your gift as a presence with your patients. And that basically sums up not only your presence and being as a physician with your patients at the end of their life and bringing the families together as you so beautifully discussed, but also how amazing that is actually at its core is probably what people want in a leader. Although I work in sport and the work that sport is awash with books and essays and discussions about what a great leader is, and you've put it so beautifully, and you know what, it's the first time I've heard it put like that, and it resonates so deeply that I think you're absolutely right with that, but you're the first person, Dr. Iyer, that I've ever heard explain it, and I think subconsciously, although people might say they want a leader who in their mind they say is strong, they've got direction, they're trustworthy, and so on and so on.
All those are talents. All those are talents.
Yes.
But they are all attributes that are required for leadership. And the essence of leadership is to create empowerment. And empowerment is the defeat, the destruction of pain. Pain, people use pain in a very, very infantile sense. Pain in its greatest manifestation encompasses everything that diminishes the expression of life. Life in its essence is always expansive. Life in its essence always connects. Life in its essence always becomes bigger and bigger. That's how why do you think creatures, if you go to nature, you plant one plant, and if it is strong, it will spread, it will go and occupy the next plot of land and the next plot of land, and it is growing. That is life. Life expands. Life always expands. All right. And that's for creatures too. You have a new creature introduced into a virgin environment, and if it is strong, will soon occupy the ecological niche. It will grow. The same with a virus. Virus will expand. It will try to go and acquire new host. Life expands. Death contracts. Both are aspects that have to be, that are aspects of reality. You don't need to run away from one and embrace the other. But if you choose life, automatically you have to function to nullify death. And the only way to do that is what I said, to be a leader. Leaders, you take Winston Churchill, you take George C. Patton, you take Alexander, Genghis Khan. They all did the same thing.
Yes, they took pain.
For their tribe, for their followers, they removed doubt, uncertainty, fear, and pain. And they did that by many ways, but they were all methods for only one purpose. And that's what physicians do too. They, to the extent that they don't understand it, they are ineffective. It is like somebody whose batting average is low because he doesn't understand the mechanics. So every now and then he hits the ball into a six.
A six.
A six, but that's more by accident than by design. But then once in a while you get a Gary Sobers, or you get some of the great batsmen of life, and they understand it right from the beginning, and they consistently hit, and they never miss a ball.
Yes.
So that's all there is about leadership.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So what you're describing there when you talk about all those examples of historical leaders, whether that's Churchill or Mandela or Alexander the Great or Marcus Aurelius, whoever we name, anybody, they were involved in that process of leading people from uncertainty, fear, pain, death, destruction, so that they could facilitate an expansion for those people. But they all did it in a specific niche. That's what you're saying. But the underlying thing is that ability to be a safe space so that people can see the future and have their fear reduced. Yes.
And that's exactly what I do. That is the one thing that I have been doing all my life.
Go on, sorry, carry on.
I just spent my life doing it, and along the way, the more and more I kept doing it, the more and more I started acquiring tools and methodologies and skills to do it better and better and better. That's all.
Do you find that, and this is because this is how for me. So I recognize when I was very early in my career, whether that was coaching young players or dealing with a patient with a rehabilitation problem, fractured femur or whatever. Initially, I was like, techniques, and we do this, we do that, we do the other, we have to work hard on this, etc., etc. Now, I spend 30 minutes, 25 minutes listening to what the patient says, and then they walk out happy, whether I give them any exercise or not. Does that resonate with you? Is that how?
Yeah. So when I walk into the room, my usual appointment space is 15 minutes. And when I walk into the room, this is my current modus operandi. It has evolved, but at the stage where I am right now, I walk into the room and I have students who come with me, and I'll make a diagnosis in the first 5 minutes, and they will say, "But sir, you never examined, or you didn't even tell, you didn't even touch the patient, you didn't or you didn't do this, or you didn't do that. How do you know?" So I said, when you have played the game enough number of times, disease will show its face to you and declare its presence to you, and it will say, "Hey, here I am, recognize me." And the patient will tell you what it is, and you just have to listen. And but if you want me to break it down, I will tell you, I'm examining the patient as I walk in. He's telling me things about his status as I walk in, and so there is a space where of connection that automatically reveals it. The essence, and all leaders do that. When they walk into a room, there is you will notice people who lead. There'll be a room full of people all mingling in a party, and a leader will walk in, and it's like the crowd just parts, and there is a space around them. And they carry that space. My daughter said that to me. See, I'm only 5'5", 5.5. I keep telling people that I'm 5'6". So, but my daughter told me once that her friends told her that your dad, when he walks down, he looks 8 feet tall. So
I get it.
So I said, why? He says, no, I don't know, Dad. You just dominate everyone around you. So I said, is that bad? Do you feel bad? You want me to not? Yeah, it's a little scary. It's like you see into us, and we can't hide. I said, okay, I'll close my eyes then.
Beautiful. It's a great story.